Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the 64th edition of ClariTeaChat. Chat. So, before I introduce my guest, our guest today, let me set a little bit of context. We all know that people do business with us if they like, know, or trust us. And in the whole thing, effective communication plays a vital role in developing this liking, knowing, and trusting people. Um, in our context, which is technology, we can take the technology capabilities for granted, but the failures that happen, they're invariably in either change management or partner management or managing your stakeholders, whether it is finance or supply chain or any one of them. And in all of these cases, communication, aimed at building this liking, knowing, and trusting is very, very important. And therefore, this topic is so relevant for us. And we have the right person here. So we have with us Rob Kanzer, executive coach, nonviolent communication, who empowers executives and business people in leadership development, team building, and conflict resolution. Hi, Rob. Welcome to the session.
Jagdish, it's great to be here. I have not tea, but I have cacao. I hope I can be on with you.
Oh, awesome. Tea is just a symbol, right, Rob? Have the drink that you like.
Yes. I wanted to be transparent and tell you what's
Absolutely.
honestly going on. And I loved what you said about doing business with people we like, we know, and we trust. And how do we create this if we have the tremendous pressure being a CIO or any kind of executive who has the demands either of Wall Street or the demands of shareholders or any kind of pressure? How can we just relax and be in the moment with human beings? I hope today we'll explore that together, and I'm very delighted to be here.
Thank you so much, Rob, and let's get going. So, just to introduce Rob, Rob belongs to a family who always believed in humility. He got the gift of communication from his father, who handled health challenges in the family even while managing his business. Rob is a certified mediator, crisis intervention counselor, and a successful entrepreneur. He has a master's certificate in dispute resolution and negotiation from the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and he studied human dynamics and communication at University of Hartford. Well, Rob, I didn't know that there's a master's certificate in dispute resolution and negotiation. It's good to know this one.
Yes.
Well, Rob has been coaching businesses and senior executives in driving large and complex transformations in the art of communication for the past 36 years. So our chat with Rob will cover case studies on how to get away from the complaint mode, knowing the importance of vulnerable conversations, how not to feel unreal, and case studies in coming across as human beings, regardless of your organization, regardless of your hierarchies, and thereby build trust. So his philosophy is don't take rejections personally, practice detachment, just like throwing seeds on the field may sometimes fall on rocks and not grow. Let's just practice on self. We will know more as we go through. So we'll end the chat with a rapid fire round to bring out the personal side of Rob and then a reverse question to me. Rob, before we start talking of serious things, let's start, getting some energy going up. So tell us this nice anecdote you have about coaches. What is the role of a coach?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Jagdish. This is a subject that just makes me feel alive. And I think that being said, my great teacher, Marshall Rosenberg, who taught me nonviolent communication, always had me as a coach think, what is alive in the other person? And what do we mean by that? You could say when somebody is expressing themselves, they may not speak in a way or behave in a way that we like. Maybe they are withdrawn, or maybe they are loud and argumentative, or maybe they speak in a way that we can't relate to. One of the things that Dr. Rosenberg helped me understand is that the actual words people use are only a small part of the communication. Behind the communication are three very vital aspects: the emotions the person is feeling, the needs that they have, and the requests that they have. But here's the problem. Sometimes people don't even know themselves what they are feeling, what they are needing, or what they are requesting. We are in a culture of criticism. We are in a culture of competition, and we are in a culture of needing to do things quickly. One of the things I learned, as you mentioned, about detachment is breathing, slowing down. Even now, as I'm speaking to you, I'm aware of the pace in which I'm speaking. But to meet somebody who maybe is speaking quickly or maybe angrily, we have to match their energy first and build rapport before arguing. Most people have it exactly backwards. They think if I just argue well enough, I will persuade the other person and then have rapport. But it's exactly the opposite.
Yeah. So, Rob, I mean, what I was like, what I was remembering was this thing about mouse and lion that you told me. I mean, why don't you just mention that?
Well, it's such a funny image, but I think that it's so true because when I was a young man, I would get overwhelmed with the prospect of talking to billionaires, people who have tremendous power in the world, and I thought, who am I? Who am I, just little Rob Kanzer in my 20s and 30s, to talk to these masters of industry or these engineers or doctors or scientists? I'm just a regular guy. But as time went by, people said to me, no, we want you on our board because you give us a fresh perspective. And so I always think of myself as surrounded by lions who are powerful and have so much to give, but I see they are suffering. So I think to myself, I will just be the little mouse that takes the thorn out of their paw. And when people are relieved of their mental anguish and pain, they can return to being the powerful lion. So I like to be in the background, even though I'm a public speaker, to give the light to my clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, exactly. Many times we think that, like, hey, I mean, in different roles, even at different stages of life, we think that, can I make a big difference? Like, there are so many big wigs out there. And I think that time we should remember that, like, everyone can be a mouse, okay, who can still take a thorn out of a lion's paw. And every lion out there that we see, they're all under stress, and there are some, thorns in everybody's paw that we can take out, and we can contribute in any manner. But thanks for that, Rob. So, um, uh, uh, Rob, we will continue the conversation, but let me get to know our audience, because I don't see many comments as yet. So, in our audience, we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned industry leaders, who all know that technology is necessary but not sufficient to drive business performance. And guests like you and many others, you know, they bring perspectives, which help build that bridge between necessary and sufficient with their respective disciplines and their respective insights. Um, like for example, we have Rob here, who's going to kind of open our eyes around communication, change management, collaboration, etc. So thank you all for joining us here, and may I request all of you to share your name and where you're joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube, and let's quickly see who all have joined us. We don't see many comments yet, but I know you're there. So please, yeah, just give us a shout. Hey, hi, Ravikant. Thanks for joining. And Ravikant, you share the name of my mentor, actually, Mr. Ravikant. Hi, Sahana. Hello. And hi, Sachin. Thanks for joining us. Guys, keep your comments coming. And yes, please keep your curiosities and questions coming as well. So, Rob, let's begin with a quick recap of your childhood and before your career started. So, tell us a little bit about your parents, where you grew up, how was the childhood.
Well, an interesting dovetail around business. In American history, the year of my father's birth was 1929, the year of the great economic crash of Wall Street, and times were tough. This was my father's life, being born into Brooklyn, where as he was raised as a boy, he was in a mixed neighborhood of half Jewish people and half Italian people. And when he told me this story when I was a boy, I was shocked. He said, some of the other boys would chase me and call me names because I was Jewish, and they would hit me. Now, my father, master communicator, spoke very quietly, very well groomed. So when I said, Daddy, what did you do when those boys hit you? He said, I hit them back. I was so shocked that my father, the gentle, brilliant man, so humble, would be in a fist fight. But now fast forward to the boom times in America, 1956. I am born. My father makes his way out of New York City, the tough and grimy streets, and I am raised in the most beautiful town called Weston, Massachusetts. My three best friends in the neighborhood, each of them has a tennis court. There's no fist fights. There's no grimy streets. There's no people yelling anti-Semitic names at me. So there was a huge difference in my father's upbringing. But what I learned during this time was I not only had fantastic opportunities in an upper middle class neighborhood with the best public school system, we also had difficulty and health challenges in my family. And there was always an undercurrent of difficulty with communication. In those days, Jagdish, it wasn't open internet and Oprah Winfrey and everybody talking about their feelings. It wasn't like that. Mental illness was suppressed, and you mustn't talk about it. It's shameful. But as a boy, I knew something was wrong here. We need to open up the conversation so that people can be relieved of their suffering and to be included. So even though I didn't know it at the time, because I'm just a boy, as the oldest of three boys and having a father who is a masterful communicator, I fell in love with the idea of paying attention to people and loving them exactly where they are to create a place of safety. In high school, I was the co-captain of my soccer team, and this was very strange to me because I was the smallest kid in the whole town, or maybe one of the smallest kids in the whole town. and just kind of like an average student, sometimes I do my homework, sometimes not. But because I was the co-captain of the soccer team, I was elevated to this position of status, and I was very shocked. I was very surprised. But now I really came into my own, shouting communication of encouragement on the field. But a curious thing happened, Jagdish. Even though I led the team to the first ever dual county league championship in the history of the school, right? This really went to my head. Oh my God, this is amazing. But I also discovered not everybody on the team thought I was great. Were they jealous of me? Did they not like my open style of communication and encouragement on the field? So, as a young man, I was really upset. Why doesn't everybody like me? Doesn't everybody see I have the best interest of the team in mind? And this was the beginning of a long journey that helped me understand, even when I am at my best, not everybody will like me. This informed me as I later began to coach leaders in organizations and in business. It's a little bit about my childhood growing up.
Awesome. ये मुद्दे तो अपना सब devices बंद करो. Yeah. Rob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Maybe looks like I had a temporary disconnection. So just to sort of paraphrase whatever you said. So there were sensitive conversations which were required in the family.
Yes.
And given the context and the times that you were in, somewhere you felt they are not happening, and that kind of generated a curiosity in you about people as they are, without judgment. And I think you kind of took that, and you were always encouraging people, and you sort of became a team captain because you were the most motivational probably. But then there was the need for approval, which was always there, that why doesn't everyone like me, why doesn't everyone approve of me? And of course, we will come to that, when we go on to the other side of the communication, what people's needs are. Right? So
That's right.
uh, yeah. So Rob, I mean, I think that's a good setting for the session. So yeah, now let us talk about your career, and how was the journey, coming where you are.
Thank you. Well, it was in 1981. I was walking down the street of my Huron Village neighborhood, not far from Harvard University, and I saw on a telephone pole an advertisement that said, "Are you interested in Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi and how they have been able to communicate and influence the world into the area of nonviolence?" And I thought, yes, I'm very interested. But when I went to this seminar, I didn't realize how hard the seminar teacher would present these difficult ways of slowing down to listen. So I spent the whole weekend, and it later turned out to become Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who was my teacher. And I didn't have the epiphany the first seminar. To be honest with you, the first seminar, it gave me a headache. It's like, why do I have to listen so deeply? Can't I just persuade other people? Can't you just teach me how to get there fast? And what I discovered was it wasn't until about 6 weeks later that I was having a personal difficulty with a business friend of mine. And then I said, oh, what did that guy Rosenberg teach me? Start with the observation. What is the other person feeling? Put yourself in the experience of the other person. Don't argue. See what kind of request the other person had. Jagdish, the most amazing thing happened to me. I had been arguing with my friend for a long time, getting more and more uncomfortable, and using this technique, literally in 5 minutes, all of our tension went away and never came back. It was
Wow.
at that point in 1981, in my conversations with my business friend Joseph, that I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And that was to teach people how to listen with compassion, to build rapport first, before arguing, before logic. And this is something I still practice. I'm not perfect, but after 42 years of practicing, after a while, I start to see patterns in my clients, patterns in business leaders, and so on. So I try my best to help where I can.
Oh, this is awesome. It's almost like you did you learned something in a seminar, and you were in a tough situation, and you experimented with it, and it worked, and that kind of made you that got you into it for life. That's and I believe, like, you've been doing it after that, and just expanding on it. But I think here there's a good lesson for everyone, Rob, is that we still have these problems in the world, whether it's interpersonal, business, whatever, despite having all the knowledge. And I think what I learned from what you did was, like, experiment. Just try to use that knowledge in your real life, and if something works, then it can work in a big way for you, right?
Beautifully said. Yes, it takes practice. A
Yeah.
coaching profession is like a doctor. They call it a practice. Yes, there's some science. Yes, I have read many, many, many articles on how people process information. Yes, there is science about hormones and adrenaline and the fear, the fight and flight syndrome. All of these things have been documented by science. But there is also an art when confronted with these difficulties to relax into our power. But how can we do that if we haven't practiced? So even though I've been doing this for 42 years, I myself still find sometimes I'm quick to argue or dismiss somebody, but I have mastered the art of just noticing it in my head and not saying it out loud.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and so let's move on to my next kind of curiosity, drop. I'm sure you must have faced challenges in your life, but one thing that I kind of noticed is that uh, is that most of us, we get into a complaint mode, right? We think something is wrong with the other person, or with the world, or with the context, but we never kind of look inside ourselves. So tell us, how you got away from the complaint mode towards learning self-awareness, and just talk to us about, like, your teachers and mentors, and I do believe that they have had a big influence and role in shaping you. Tell us about what you learned from them, and maybe some incidences or experiences with them.
Well, absolutely, Jagdish. It's absolutely spot on what you're talking about. Most of the ways in which we human beings have been able to take over the whole planet is we're constantly on the defense. We're constantly, our brain is wired for negativity. What's wrong? What can happen? What is the fear? I better attack first so I don't get killed. And now that we have reached, for many of us, not everybody on earth, but a majority now in this common age, we have food, we have clothing, we have shelter, but we have within us these incredible drives to compete and argue and win. So when you ask me the question, what are some of these techniques? I would turn to my mentor we mentioned, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, who taught me nonviolent communication. And he said there are basically 4 things to look for in any communication with another person, but as you said, Jagdish, also to look within. So it's a back and forth dance between being aware of my own 4 steps, but also being aware of the other person's 4 steps while I'm having the communication. So it's multitasking and shifting back and forth. Number 1, what are we observing? What does the person say? How do they look? What is the volume of their voice? Number 2, what is their emotion? Are they angry? Are they depressed? Are they withdrawn? Number 3, what are they needing? Are they needing to be included, to be part of the group? Do they need a sense of respect? We must stop our own argumentative mind. So when I'm interacting with somebody, let's say somebody very close to me in a relationship, whether it's personal or business, it doesn't matter. We're still human. I hear the other person start to say things that are not true. They're wrong. Right away, my mind is calculating an argument to defeat them and prove that they're wrong. But I must just listen, because when somebody feels a sense that you are listening to them and allowing them to vent their frustration, a very interesting thing starts to happen. They realize, oh, I don't have to argue so hard. He's not reacting against me. This is what people call disarming. People have said, that guy, Rob, he's very disarming. That guy was yelling at him and he just stayed there. Rosenberg used to talk about the Buddha, and he would say, don't just do something, sit there. We have exactly the opposite training in our culture, which says, don't just sit there, do something. So it's almost as if, Jagdish, these practices are to turn upside down. So when I'm in a coaching mode with an executive, a business owner, a team leader, whether they're in IT or medicine or you name it, software, it's the same because they're human. And I have had so many people using new technology, new IT, and they say, yeah, these tools are great. Slack is great. Or my boss allowing me to work from home. But the technology, my boss is looking over my shoulder every 60 seconds. So as a human, I feel resentful. As a human, I'm not going to be as much of an asset to the corporation if I feel my bosses are using the technology against me. So that's the crazy balance I think IT people need to take a look at. Yes, as Steve Jobs would say, it's not let's figure out fancy technology and try to push it on people. Let's first ask people, how are they feeling and what are they needing? And then build the technology to support that. It's part of the difficulty of brilliant people, and I coach a lot of brilliant people, is it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is they're brilliant, they can figure out complex problems, but it's a curse because they become attached to their brilliance. When we are attached to our brilliance, it shuts out the other person. If you shut out the other person, what happens to your executive team? If you shut out your client, your customer, what happens to the sales presentation? It falls on deaf ears. So it's so important in nonviolent communication that when I'm speaking, I share my own feelings and my own needs, but I also have to be listening. What is the other person feeling and needing? Now, sometimes I can bring it out of them in 2 minutes, but sometimes it takes several conversations over weeks. So we have to decide how much time can we take with this person or this team, given that we're under time pressure to get things done quickly. It's an art and a science.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, Rob, a few things connected to me. One is, that we are. I mean, the brilliant minds. They're always trying to solve problems, and this is something I see um, most of the times that people are using their brains to solve the problem. They're not using their brains to understand the problem. And in any context, practically today, um, the biggest element of problems lies in the way people are interacting, right? And so, I mean, we all know about active listening, and you actually gave me 4 steps of active listening. Observe, what are they feeling, what are they needing, and then, what are they requesting, right? Or what is the and I kind of just let me share with you some personal experience here. Um, when I used to get into a conference room, and we had a partner driven delivery. So in a conference room, you will have people from different partners, people from different departments of my function. And I would just spend the first 5 minutes trying to observe everyone, and especially their body language. Are they participating in the conversation or not? Are they kind of sitting with a with a sad, or with a sort of disturbed face? And I can tell you that within 5 to 7 minutes I used to really get what I call as the pulse of the meeting, right? You see that the most competent expert in the room has not spoken for the last 7 minutes. Means that there's something wrong. And then you start looking at, okay, I need to bring out that guy, and I would just simply ask a small question. I say, okay, guys, yes, I've heard you, so what do you think about it? And suddenly the guy wakes up, and then starts contributing. So I think even in a team context, I've seen this. Even if you just simply observe, and then kind of bring out the needs of people, right? I think a lot of collaboration can be built. But thanks for sharing that 4 step model. And guys out there, everyone has been talking to you about active listening. This is what active listening is all about. And of course, non-violent communication is much more. So, Rob, I'm sure, people who are here, they've been patiently waiting to hear from you, what is non-violent communication? How is it different from a violent communication? You know, tell us just demystify the whole topic a lot, because I'm sure it generated a lot of curiosity in people's minds. Non-violent communication.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Thank you, Jagdish. No, my memory is brought to a semiconductor company. I was brought in, and they said, we have a world-class quality assurance engineer leader who is known the world round for her ability to use her brilliant mind to solve some of these quality assurance and quality control issues in manufacturing and making our production of semiconductors more efficient. But when she's with her team, her passion for her brilliance takes over, and she speaks to people using swear words, and she barks at people very impatiently. Why did you do that? Don't you know this is the process we're supposed to follow? But here's the thing, even though she was right, the human beings in the room, the 17 people on her team who were also brilliant, they began to feel afraid. They began to feel hurt. They began to feel angry. So, number one, what is the observation? The observation is the tone of voice is loud. Number two, what are the feelings? The feelings are hurt, withdrawal. Number three, what are people needing? Well, those 17 members, it worked very hard. But now one quits. Now a second one quits. And now a third one quits. Now, this is the global team. There's a brilliant leader creating a corrosive environment. And we know our C-level people are hungry for talent, hungry to keep them. Well, in nonviolent communication, what we do is not necessarily limited to correcting people, especially in public. When we have to express our anger, it's better to do it in private, not in front. Why? Why? Because step number three, what people need, they need to save face. They need to be included in the group. They need respect. They need honor. They need acknowledgement. But many, many leaders don't take the time to ask their team, do you feel stress? Do you have a sense of respect from me? Are you feeling a sense of belonging to the group? And we have to ask these questions with humility. So as my coaching process went with this executive, we started in private, and she did not make a transformation right away. She constantly argued. Now, instead of arguing with her team, now she's arguing with me. And she's saying, you don't understand. These things have to be done. And then she would use swear words, which I won't say on this program. Then I started to demonstrate some compassion for her. And I said, when you see your team behaving this way and not following the rules, do you feel impatient? Remember, that's the second step, feeling. She said, yes, I feel impatient. They know better than to do this. And I said, on the third step, are you needing some confidence that the project will be done on time and that you will be successful? Now, you think to yourself, well, these are obvious questions. But did anybody ever take the time to empathize with the person who is exhibiting the behavior that we don't like? No. Most of us team up with the people that share our opinion of the person we don't like. And then what happens? It makes the situation worse. So in nonviolent communication, we get out of the silo of us against them, and we go into the heart of compassion. We don't lead with an argument correcting people. Now, it took a long time. I think it was about 6 sessions of yelling and swearing. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to make a breakthrough. But then there it was on the 6th session, because I kept empathizing with her. I kept saying, wow, this sounds really tough, right? My mind wanted to tell her, stop doing that. That's wrong. You shouldn't swear at people. But because she didn't feel judged by me on her own, and this is where the power lies. When people come to the realization themselves that they need to apologize, when they come to the realization themselves that they have created a toxic environment, when they come to the realization themselves that they have not been vulnerable with their team and human, now they have a chance. Because if I lectured that executive on what to do, she would only become more defensive. But in nonviolent communication, we lead with the compassion of hearing their feelings, their needs, and their requests. And Rosenberg says it's not a guarantee, but you increase your chances of success. He said, what's the alternative? Continuing to be violent, which means I don't care how you feel. Violence, which means I don't care about your needs. And violence is instead of making requests, we make demands. This is what Rosenberg calls violence. Many of us do it without even realizing we're doing it because it's the culture in which we have been raised for thousands of years of right and wrong. People who do the right thing, they deserve a reward. People that do the wrong thing, they deserve to be punished. Rosenberg says, stop. Stop with rewards and punishment and right and wrong. If you want to make progress with people, they need to feel heard and understood. So this is the essence of nonviolent communication.
Oh no,
When
this is really powerful, Rob. Yeah, you wanted to say something else?
I was just going to say, in the conclusion to the story at the semiconductor company, she said, now I want you to come into the room with my whole team. So there's 19 of us. She stands up, and for the first time in her professional life, she looks at every member of the team and she publicly apologizes. And people in the room were like, there was silence for a long time. People could not believe that this tyrannical leader who was swearing at them, right? I later found out throughout the company, there was a big buzz after this happened. Like, she apologized, she apologized, she apologized. It couldn't, and it created this reverberation of hope. And instead of the team imploding because people were quitting, now the team was made cohesive and they went on to be successful. Now, does it work every time? Is it a dream fairy tale come true? Sometimes, but it's more like life, up and down, like the stock market. Generally, over time, investments pay off. Nonviolent communication is like that. We can't just snap our fingers and said, well, I followed the 4 steps. Why didn't it work? Why didn't I get a 10% return on my communication? Well, you have to keep investing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think couple of few observations here, um, Rob. So it's like we are the I mean the way we are also trained is like to be very very oriented on outcomes. And so what you called as observe, pay attention, right? I think that goes out of the door. So so I think there's many so people are kind of wondering about this difference. So let me kind of just say my what I learned is like so instead of just focusing on what you want to get out of somebody else, making it transactional, make it more empathetic, pay attention. Instead of like making it again from the transaction, you look at like what are the needs of it. I mean, what are they feeling, what are they needing, and instead of demanding, you start requesting. And of course this has to be done two-way. That means you also have to share with them what you are feeling, what you're needing, and what are your requests of out of the communication. And that's absolutely important as well. I think the biggest one, you mentioned it in a very matter of factly way, was get out of the silo of we versus them. When something is dysfunctional, when you're not liking someone, don't create a we versus them. That means collaborate with everyone who doesn't think like them, or who doesn't agree with them. But it's like more like go deeper into like understanding their feelings, needs, etc., etc., and then try to see, like, there must be a bridge somewhere. I think the other one is, when someone is saying something, uh, I would say that unless it is a direct hurt to you, you try to understand them, you try to empathize rather than judge them, right? And rather than thinking about responding to them. So, and I think the biggest one that I got, Rob, was, like, the big difference between teaching and learning, right? You can learn everything, but you cannot teach everything. And I think you were just, like, on that process of making the person learn it rather than you sort of, like, getting anxious to teach it to that executive. And I think, so think about it, how many times, we are, even with our teams, we are in this whole anxiety. In fact, just today, before this session, I was coaching, a CEO, and she was, I was exactly telling her the same thing. I said, listen, you can give them SOPs, you can give them, do this, do that, and all that, but, unless it comes from within, right? You can't get these, things around the basic principles of working. You can't, get them into people's heads. You will have to open their heads to, like, to get it. And then, we were talking through various hacks and, various ways in which we can, just a minute, Rob. Yeah. So you'll have to work out these ways. And, I think something that always works is, like, why, ask them why, so why is it happening? Is there another way to do it, etc., etc. So, uh, just fresh in my mind, my conversation with this, with my coachee. So, we did talk about these difficult and vulnerable conversations. So, Rob, many of us here are, technology sellers, and something that people come here, many of the people come here is, like, just to kind of that, bridge between the different participants in the industry. So, what is your advice to the sellers of technology for driving effective conversations or effective interactions with enterprise leaders like CIOs, CTOs, and all?
A beautiful question. And I think here we can see the overlap between regular conversation and business communication. It's very close. In order to make a sale, we must have rapport. People like to do business and buy products and services from people they know, like, and trust. But what if you're meeting somebody for the first time? You don't know them. How can you trust them? And what if you're selling technology and the person on the other end, they don't have a technological background? They don't really understand what you're saying. You can be so convinced that your product is good for them that you miss the human being you're talking to. So if you are at the C level and you're responsible for the profit and loss of your innovative products, you must have your salespeople and your presentation people build rapport. So, nonviolent communication can be spoken out loud in the 4 steps, but it can also operate silently inside of you. I wonder what the person was observing before this sales meeting presentation happened. I wonder if they are present, are they relaxed? Rather than launching into my presentation, if I notice somebody seems distracted to me, I just simply say, hey, before we get started, do you mind if I ask you a question? I saw you were looking at your watch a few times. And the person says, yes, my wife is in the hospital. I'm waiting for the doctor to call. Right? Oh, tell me more. It sounds like it's a serious situation. In other words, Take the time to be present with the person, to make sure the person is present with you. Now, again, it's an art and a science. If you only have 60 minutes and you're on a broadcast, I can't get up right now and go to the other room if somebody's impatient, right? I have to manage my time. But in nonviolent communication, I have to observe and feel, who am I selling to? What are they needing? So I have to inquire. I say, this is the first time we're meeting. How did you get involved in this technological role? And the person says, oh, I don't really know anything about technology. I've only been here for 6 months. So now I have to adjust my sales presentation. I can't just go through the deck, assuming that this person has my level of technological knowledge. I have to say, tell me a little bit about how you feel about technology. When is the best time you've ever enjoyed technology? And your customers, whether they're your internal customers or the people you're selling to, what are they needing? What are they complaining about? Why would they buy this product that we're presenting to you? So it's almost like you're engaging the other person to actually sell the product to themselves. Why? Because there's no arguing. There's no, you should do this. It's more a question of, how would this product help you? So nonviolent communication has a very interesting connection with sales and business. Does it make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, absolutely, Rob. And I think, I keep telling a lot of times that most of the people I came across, maybe tens, if not hundreds of salespeople during my, time. And I can tell you that, what differentiated the good ones from the normal ones was this ability to listen and to connect with you. 90% of the people would come in, they would start talking about their products and and the capabilities and the, where it made an impact and all. And I think only 10% of them kind of drove the conversation in a very nuanced way towards what are our problems, why are we looking at this, what have we evaluated, what do we already know. So they would check my level of knowledge, they would check, are we just getting ourselves educated, or are we really or do we have an urgency, because your sales approach will change with both. So in the good ones really did what you're saying. They really engaged, they really tried to understand, they really tried to make that connect, right? So Rob, on that note, I think long back I asked my audience that hey, come share your names and where you're joining from, and then I simply got absorbed in my conversation with you. So sorry guys, let me see who all came after that request. So we had Sachin. Hi Sachin. We had Prashant. Excellent analogy. Rob, mouse and lion with our current situation. We have Jay from Pune. We have Amit Mahajan. Hi Amit. And hi another Amit from Delhi, Amit Bhatia. Um, so then we have Dr. Amrut um, from Mumbai. Um, yeah, and we have one question here. I think we'll have more questions here, but Rahul Shivani says that empathy goes missing with violent conversation. I think, yeah, the missing empathy is, I would say, at the root of violent communication, right? So then we have another question here. So there are lots of questions here, Rob. So if we can be really a little bit quick so that we can take most of these questions. So Prashant says, what is the biggest barrier to effective communication?
Prashant, thank you for the question. I think one of the biggest barriers to effective communication is my mind being prepared to argue while the other person is talking. I have a fear that if I don't get my point in, I will lose. This is a huge barrier to effective communication. We think effective communication is being clever and being right. So the biggest barrier to effective communication, Prashant, is going too fast and not listening for the emotions of the other person, the needs of the other person, and the request of the other person.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have someone who kind of replayed what we have been talking. He says aggression both in action, body language, and decibel, being a bad listener, pushing your thoughts, loud tone. I think that's a bad conversation or a violent communication. Absolutely bang on, Rahul. So there was Gururaj. He says, Rob, you mentioned 4 points to remember in communication: observe, read, emotions, identify needs. What's the fourth point? I think the fourth point was requests, right?
Yes, Guru Raj, thank you for that question. The fourth is the action step, but it's not telling somebody what to do. It's seeing if you understand what is their vision for the future. Now, sometimes the future is 2 minutes from now. Sometimes the future is 2 years from now. So people, whether they know it or not, they have an internal request, something that they would like to see going forward. So the fourth step, Guru Raj, is what are the requests? What requests do you have of the other person? And what request do they have of you? In contrast to demand. A demand is telling somebody, a request is asking. When Rosenberg talked about nonviolent communication, he said, when we demand of people, it inherently eviscerates their humanity. But when we make a request, and in fact, I learned this from one of my good coaching friends, he will insert this question. Before even making the request, he will say, Guru Raj, I have a request. Stop talking. Like, okay, you're preparing the mind of the listener. Not that they're demanding, but they have a request. So the fourth step, Guru Raj, is understanding your own request of somebody for action, but understanding their request of you for action.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we have one question here. It's not so funny question, by the way. Sajit is asking, should companies have punching bag rooms to vent frustrations rather than to take it out on colleagues?
Huh. Well, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek question, but I think it has some really good value. Sajit Kumar, thank you for the question. Frustrations are a very interesting dynamic. It's a kind of pressure. And so we want to let out the pressure in the most constructive way. If we let out the pressure by punching somebody in the face, that kind of venting of frustration, obviously, is not only violent, but does more damage. But if I can share vulnerably and say, guys, I'm feeling frustrated. I'm needing some respect. My request is that we sit down and have a conversation about our needs. You can hear in my voice, like, there's a frustration, but I'm not pointing my finger at the other person saying, you are the cause of my frustration. But I'm saying, I feel frustrated because I have a need. I have a request. Would you be open? So, the second area to answer this is, how do I personally, when I'm by myself, deal with frustration? I have three methods that work for me. Maybe you already know. One is I go to the gym and I feel a physicality release of my frustration without hurting anybody. I sweat, I dance, or I go for a walk in nature. Have I ever punched a punching bag or punched my pillow in frustration? Yeah, I have in my life. Does it help? I guess sometimes.
Yeah, thanks, Rob, for that. Yes, I think The I like the second part of it, like where you find an outlet for your frustrations, and I think that kind of an activity, whether it's inactivity like meditation or whether it's activity like going for a jog, I think it does help clear your mind and puts a perspective to those things, right? Okay, so now let me go on to more questions. So I have a question from Jitendra here. He is asking, Rob, it is natural to judge someone or a situation, but how to practice pay attention without judging or evaluating?
Jitendra, it's a great question. I've been practicing for 42 years, and I still find that I must pay attention to my own impulse to judge. You're absolutely right. It's natural. We human beings, we have these massive frontal lobes in our brain, always going. It's like anything. The gurus, they will teach us how to control our breath. In nonviolent communication, we are taught how to control our judgments. And the way to control judgments is you take a judgment and you transform it into asking, in this judgment, what are the emotions, the feelings, and what are the needs related? Now you have a curiosity. Instead of being addicted and made ever more excited by the drama of judging somebody, or sometimes we judge ourselves. It has been said that we judge other people because we are also judging ourselves. So in nonviolent communication, it's not just that we only want to listen to the feelings and the needs of other people. What about our own internal feelings and needs? So, yes, Jitendra, it is natural to judge people. So, how to practice? You want to sit and breathe and say, what am I feeling? Is my heart pounding? Are my teeth clenched? Do I have a clenched fist? And why? What am I needing? Am I needing love? Am I needing respect? Am I needing a shared reality and understanding? These are some of the ways to modify judging. Like in yoga, they say your judgmental mind will never go away, ever, but you can inhibit it with practice. In nonviolent communication, we practice the question: what are the emotions? What are the needs? What are the requests? It's almost a kind of meditation. I hope that helps a little bit.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely, Rob. I'm sure it helps. I think the four steps that Rob talked about, it's not only about understanding the other person, from those four different perspectives, but it's also understanding yourself, right?
Yes.
I mean, what am I observing about myself? What am I feeling, right? What are my needs? And like, what are my requests? And so this has to be a two-way. By the way, Rob, quite some time back, I actually wrote an article on LinkedIn about empathy. There was a question somebody asked that, empathy is a natural thing, but you can't develop it. I said, no, you can develop it. So wrote an
Oh,
article about it. And one of the three steps was to delay your judgment. So it's like, always saying that, hey, you know what? Let me gather more information, right? Let me ask a few questions before judging, let me validate it. So it's like, giving more time for you to judge someone. And then you figure out that, hey, you know what? We're all humans. I mean, whatever, even if I observe something, there's a logical reason just because I asked about it, right? Yeah. So
yes.
there's another very interesting question from Sachin here, Rob. I'm like very very tempted to answer this question, but I'll let you answer this. It's your show. So isn't that exhausting to go through all the steps of empathy just to get across to a person, than to just dictate and get the message? Very good question, Sachin.
Oh, Sachin, you make me laugh because the answer is absolutely. I'm asking of others, but I'm asking of myself something that's hard work. I equate it, Sachin, to good health. Isn't it hard to go to the gym 4 days a week, to lift the weight, to get my heart rate up? Yeah, it is hard work, but exhaustion is too far. This means if, Sachin, you are trying empathy, but you are beginning to lose your patience, you're beginning to really clench your teeth. What Rosenberg said is now you need a little empathy for yourself. And he said, allow in the rules of the game, when you're doing the hard work of empathy, to call a timeout. This is completely acceptable in sports, right? The action gets a little too heated. What does the coach say? Okay, timeout, timeout. You have gone beyond your capability. As the famous actor in Hollywood, Clint Eastwood, used to say, a man's got to know his limits. So be very careful when any coach, whether it's Jagdish or me or your guru or whoever it is that you want to learn from, it must ring true for you. If
Go.
I'm saying, Sachin, I want you to practice these 4 steps, you have to find out for yourself. So you want to give it a chance to practice. And even Rosenberg said of nonviolent communication, he said, look, it's a tool. It's not the be all end all. You already have some of your own innate wisdom. So, Sachin, you must judge and feel your own exhaustion. If you're at the point where it's counterproductive to practice the 4 steps, take a timeout.
By the way, the reason I was tempted to answer that question, Rob, was Sachin is an old colleague, and Sachin, all I can tell you is that I've been practicing it, and you know that it has worked, right? You know how it works to build long-term relationships, how it works to build respect, how it works to build a collaboration, to build that one team across all the partners. I think the underlying thing that I have always tried to do is to empathize. It's actually, in the technology world, it's so easy to judge and blame it on your partners. Like, I can always almost make it a slogan. Okay, something, you're in deep shit, blame your partner. Okay, but um, I think you also know that, like, I've always tried to empathize that, hey, what are they going through? Is it something where we didn't give a timely decision? Is it something, where we didn't, like, do something on our part to help them? So it works in the long term, of course, and if you want to build long term relationships, it definitely works, because you come across yourself as a genuine person, and someone who's genuinely interested in others, and that's what gets it done for you. Okay, so Rob, I sort of realized that again in the conversation we are 10 minutes over time almost,
Oh my God.
and we need to kind of wrap up a little quickly. I hope I have some luxury of time on your side.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed being on Clarity with you, and I did set aside an hour. We've spilled over a little bit, but I like to think it's because we had a feeling of enthusiasm, because our need for stimulating conversation was met, and our request is to share with others as much as we can our enthusiasm and our coaching skills. But our request is also to be humble ourselves and learn from others. And I certainly feel a great way in which you have given to me today. So thank you very much.
Yeah, but Rob, I hope we can spend another 5 7 minutes. I have a few.
Oh,
I have
okay.
one very good question from Subbu, and then and then just wrapping it up with the rapid fires and other stuff.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for doing that, and to the audience, guys, sorry for going a little over time, but yeah, it's been heck of a discussion. So Subbu is asking, saying, greetings, Jagdish and Rob, very insightful and interactive session. I like the concept of non-violent communication, 4 steps. Subbu, I know you do that as well. You're a great leader. Thanks. In coaching and mentoring, what's the guiding principle to manage emotions and keep the motivation ahead? Yeah.
Well, uh, Subbu, thank you for that question. It's great. The guiding principle to managing emotions is to pay attention to the wisdom, not just of your thinking, but of your body. Science is showing us over and over and over again that intelligence and wisdom is actually a distributed system that covers the fascia. We've all heard of muscle memory. It's more than just a cute slogan. There's actual intelligence and memory of experience in your body. As a president of Lexington Toastmasters and an award winning speaker, when I'm coaching people to manage their emotions when they're delivering an impassioned speech, I say, pay attention to your body. Don't just speak from your head. If your arms are extended, if your heart is beating, literally listen to your heart. So, the guiding principle to manage emotions is to honor your emotions. And like the previous question, when the emotions become too much and we become exhausted, give yourself a break. Like recently, I had, unfortunately, a death in my family. And of course, during the grieving process, one of the most uncomfortable kinds of emotions, there needs to be an allowing, right? I have to allow my grief to come up because it's human. But by the same token, I have a coaching business I must run, and I can't be bringing the grief of the death of a loved one. So, what is the guiding principle to manage emotions? Is to listen to your body. That means when you are filled with these impulses, you have to take the time not just to listen to other people, but you have to listen to your own body. And therein lies the wisdom.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great message, Rob. And many a times, like I think when you are trying to manage something, and your body gives you the signal that hey, you're not being authentic.
Right?
So absolutely agree. So Rob, let's move on to our rapid fire questions. So to our audience, I know we're a little late, but if you have any curiosities or any quick questions for Rob, um, anything under the sun about he as a person, please go ahead and shoot while I'll shoot a couple of questions of my own. So Rob, what has helped you the most?
Great
I mean,
question.
and it
I
was
think that one of the things that helps me the most is practicing and forgiving myself when I don't do well, to practice self forgiveness, self compassion, looking in the mirror and literally looking at myself and saying, I love you, Rob. Sounds like this was a hard day that you went through. It's okay if you have to cry. I am here for you. And when I regain my composure, to go back to practicing.
awesome, awesome.
Practice, practice, practice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think maybe on a similar note for me, it is practicing gratitude. So as you said, our minds are conditioned for negativity. We always remember the negatives more than the positives. So through my coach, I got into this habit of end of the day writing down a few things. This is something good which happened today, it basically conditions your mind and you practice being thankful. Otherwise, you will simply be stressed out about what happened today. And you have to make a conscious effort to practice gratitude. So,
Yes.
Rob, who gets the most credit for what you are today? Except you, of course.
I would say my father and Marshall Rosenberg. I've had many, many, many teachers, including my clients, including people I have in my family and my personal relationships, and even the occasional stranger. Everybody is my teacher. But Rosenberg gave me these 4 steps that are easy for me to remember. And it's like almost having prayer beads in my hand all the time. What are the observations? What are the feelings? What are the needs? What are the requests? And so I give a bow of respect to my late teacher, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, author of Nonviolent Communication, who spent the time with me before he became world famous. I have a debt of gratitude.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. And yes, we have Sachin back to us for the second innings. Sachin is asking Rob, when does your day start and does it end? Considering you need to empathize continuously. And now there's a question in it and there's a pun in it. So
Oh my gosh, the alpha and the omega, right? The infinite loop of beginning of all time, right?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
when does your day start? When does it end? Considering you need to empathize continuously. I think it's important to take ourselves lightly. Yes, we're doing serious work. Yes, the world has serious problems. Yes, we are business people who have demands. But I really like what Jagdish was saying, Sachin, is to take the moment. You know, if you look at your assumption, empathize continuously, yes, that's true. Like my heart needs to beat continuously. Sometimes I have to increase my heart rate to keep my heart healthy. But sometimes I just need to sit down and watch Masterpiece Theater on TV and let it go. Let it go. Sometimes I have to work hard, and then other times I need to take a nap. So the need to empathize continuously doesn't mean constantly demanding of myself relentlessly. Empathize, 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 because you can see in the gesture that's the exact opposite of empathy. That's the demand. So
yeah,
it's the question of notice your practice, Sachin. Does your practice produce results? Not in a perfect 45-degree angle, but generally your practice over time. Is it helping you? And if it is, continue that practice. If you notice your practice is diminishing your returns, change your practice.
absolutely. And my 2 cents to that question, Rob, there's an assumption in that question, which is that empathy takes time. Being empathetic means spending more time. I disagree with that, Sachin. So it's not, once you practice it, it becomes like your second nature, and
Yes.
you're and I think in your second nature, in my view, is more of curiosity towards the other person rather
Yes.
than the anxiety to put your point across. And I think
Oh,
the moment you
beautiful.
shift that, I think you will understand what I'm trying to say, Sachin. Yeah. So Rob, there's another question from Subbu. He's asking, how do you let go of negativity and live your life with positivity?
Well, Subbu, I can tell you what I do, but inherently in my answer, I'm going to ask you what you do. And that is to pay attention to what makes you feel happy and alive. Now, for me, the way I let go of negativity is by physical expression. I mentioned working out in the gym, assisted stretching, yoga. And for me, I'm a wild and crazy dancer. Now, Subbu, maybe you're a wild and crazy dancer, maybe you're not. I think how we let go of negativity and live with positivity is something that is very personal that we learn through practice. So, what I've learned is if I push myself relentlessly to just have one more coaching call and one more time to build my business, and I do it relentlessly, I actually become irritable. I become a less effective coach. So, the question of how to live your life with positivity is a discovery process. But for me, it's greatly enhanced through physicality, workout, sweat, dance, walk in nature.
Absolutely. And as I said, for me it's gratitude.
Yeah.
So Subbu, how I let go of negativity is to bring positivity in a real way on my gratitude journal every night, night after night. I have, I think, about 4 or 5 of them for the last 2 years that I've been practicing it. It's like, just about 5, 6 lines or maybe half a page every day. Just takes not more than 5 minutes, but it's really effective in practicing positivity. Okay, so my last rapid fire. Actually, it's a no-brainer, Rob. But let me still ask you. The whole world is made, is built on the entire logic, and science is based on logic. So let me ask you this weird question. Logic or emotion? What comes first?
The people who are much smarter than me have documented that the way human beings make decisions is on their emotion. And then they use their intellect to explain why they made that decision. And this operates almost unconsciously. Occasionally, like on ClariTeaChat, Chat, we make that decision. We say, I don't know, I liked the guy, I trusted him. Uh, those are emotions. That wasn't logic. Well, oh, no, no, no. I read his report. He was the prominent doctor in his field. Yeah, that came after. If you had
Yeah,
met that if you had met that doctor and had a sick feeling in your stomach, you would not go. You wouldn't know why necessarily if you don't know how to pay attention to your body and but of course we need both. It's a balance. And the cup that I brought to me for our show, it's a balance of the two. You need
absolutely,
some logic, you need language, you need the sequence of things that make sense, but you also need your own heart, your own gut, your lungs, and all of the things that you feel in your body. You have a
absolutely.
you have a brain that's language and logic based, but you have a body that feels things, that has its own kind of intelligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there is a closing comment from Subbu saying that I follow a simple principle: live, laugh, love, as this is the life we get only once. Absolutely, I think that's something we all need to remember, that we get this life only once. So no point is stressing about it. And my mother shared, forgive, forget, let go. Live and live your life with gratitude.
Hmm.
Absolutely, Subbu. Great share. Thank you so much. So Rob, before we end, maybe if there is a question you want to ask me, I call it as a reverse question or a revenge question. I've been asking you all the questions so far.
Um, Jagdish, are you a wild dancer? Are you somebody that goes to the gym and sweats? Are you somebody that climbs mountains? Are you somebody that jumps in the ice cold water? What are the things? Do you play tennis? What are the things that you do physically outside of your dialectic and didactic workaday world that helps you feel refreshed, that has nothing to do with these logical conversations, but really has to do with your body?
Yeah. Great question and refreshing question, Rob. Because most times, I get asked questions about my work. So um, I golf, and I live next to a golf course, and I actually shifted from the buzz of Mumbai, to here, which is much outside Pune, just because I can play golf on an everyday basis, and of course, like it's a much greener and much more fresher here. But at the same time, I also love working out. So I have a personal trainer with whom I connect on Zoom. Um the effort is to connect on a daily basis, but yes, I think we are able to do 2 to 3 days a week because I also have to balance it with my golf. Uh, Now that is something which is more of yoga, because yoga gives a lot of flexibility and a lot of what you called as balance. With various asanas that we have, and I think both of them, they go together. My golf requires concentration, um, meditative mind, and a good flexible body. And yoga, and what I do with yoga basically, like is not only just a workout, an intense workout, but it also kind of helps me. So it's like a yoga yoga golf.
Very nice.
Thank
Lovely.
you. Thank you, Rob. I think, we really went quite a bit over time here. And thank you, all our audience, for bearing with us, for still listening to us, for still responding with your comments and your questions. Thank you for your engagement. And to all of those who are watching this recording, and I know many of you do that over the weekend, thank you as well for watching Clarity Chat and for listening to us. Please do enjoy your family time, everyone. And I'll also leave Rob to enjoy his weekend. Thank you, Rob, for joining me on Clarity Chat today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jagdish, and thank you, everybody in the audience. Please reach out if I can help in any way.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.